just go casual for a minute or so to get some followers on Periscope. So you can go live.
So I find the live?
Yeah. Hi friends. Welcome. 2 Periscopes in one day. Who would have thought? I think the world might be coming to an end. We're just winging this. We're going to have some fun. We have Ras and Kathy, better known as Ultra Pedestrian Ras. Do you have a fancy name too?
I don't. I just go
Yeah.
by Kathy, and then
Kathy.
as a team, we call ourselves Ultra Pedestrian.
Yeah, we're
Ultra pedestrian.
team ultra pedestrian.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
The hat.
So just a quick kind of overview. Ras and Kathy are attempting the first ever yo-yo attempt of the Arizona Trail. What that means is they started on the Mexico border. They're on their northerly route to the Utah-Arizona border, and then they'll turn around and make their way back to the Mexico border. So you know a lot more about the trail than I do, so why don't you just give us a brief overview of the Arizona Trail?
The Arizona Trail is a national scenic trail which is roughly 800 miles long. Measurements vary, but it runs from the Mexico border to the Utah border, north and south, and it's just a very difficult trail in a lot of ways. A lot of climbing and descending, a lot of elevation gain and loss, really rocky ground. I mean, there's some nice cruisy sections, but some really brutal sections as well. Oh, I'm trying to discipline the cat, didn't work.
We'll be good.
And just everything out here is out to get you. The plants and everything just want to rip you to pieces. I mean, from cholla cactuses that grab onto you out of nowhere to cat's claw acacias and just everything. It's a wonderful trail and it's an amazing experience, but it's a brutally difficult trail.
As we're just winging this interview, we have my mother-in-law Penny behind the camera. A lot of people really love my hats, and Penny is the originator of my knitted wool hat, so it's kind of neat having the whole family here.
Yeah, those are sweet hats.
Yeah.
So the first time I heard of you was kind of serendipitous. We kind of almost crossed paths in the Grand Canyon. Geez, how long ago was that? 2013, I think. My first time, my one and only time running the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim. You did it about a week later, and I saw a thread about somebody running the Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim 3 times. So when you put those together, it's hard to even say, but essentially you crossed the Grand Canyon 6 times in a row.
Right.
It was really fascinating. You know, I was just entering the world of ultra running, still trying to find its meaning and purpose to me. And I was blown away. I really couldn't fathom how a human could do that. One of my favorite stories, and it shows your determination and will, is after your first double crossing, you made your way back to the southern end, and you're pretty exhausted. If I remember, you may have been running low on fuel and energy, and you stopped in an interesting spot, and you recruited yourself. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, at the essentially the South Kaibab trailhead there's a parking area, and I didn't have a backcountry permit, and you're supposed to have a backcountry permit to park in that parking area, so I had actually parked a quarter mile or so out the road, which was great because that way the car didn't present temptation for me to violate my unsupported ethic or to wimp out and quit. Yeah, I had run out of water on the climb up the South Kaibab, and the main food I had with me, especially at that point, I'd eaten most of my fresh stuff, and I had nut butter with me. And if you really can't even eat nut butter without some water to wash it down, so I really wasn't able to eat. And when I got to the top there, I was severely questioning whether I'd be able to continue on. So what I basically did was, it was really windy. There were just crazy winds buffeting me the whole time. And so even though it'd been a blazing hot day, when I got to the top and stopped moving, I was getting cold. And so I basically barricaded myself in the Forest Service restroom at the top of the trail there. And it was pretty clean. It was in pretty good shape. which is good. And you know, part of the character of those things is that it's a pit toilet, so you've got this microbial activity going on, which actually generates a little bit of heat. So they're warmer than just the shelter would imply. So I holed up in there, as it were, and put on all my layers and laid down and just kind of laid there and rested and ate and drank and for a couple hours until I felt revivified and felt that not only felt that I could continue on, but felt that it was a reasonable decision to drop into the canyon again and attempt the second rim to rim to rim.
Yeah. Well, aside from the humor of that moment in the restroom stall, what is fascinating is that you spent 3 hours. A lot of times you finish, you had an escape route. You had warmth and food and fuel a quarter mile away where your car was. But you found the drive and determination to walk out of that stall and cross the canyon 4 more times after that. And that's what really drew me to your story and your character, and it's been fun following your adventures ever since.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Anybody that wants on Periscope, if you have any questions, please ask them. We'll try and get to those. Kathy, I'm curious to know, and I'm sure you're speaking for yourself and partially for Ras as well, but what your approach is to these adventures, what it means to you, and how you go about them.
These adventures are often quite a big challenge for me, and this guy is really stubborn and strong-willed, and so to keep up with that, I have to dig pretty deep within myself to come up with the strength to keep up with what we've decided to do. We always will decide on these adventures together, but it seems like they're often easier for Ras, and I do end up digging a little bit deeper. I grew up being, fairly shy and quiet and unathletic and even clumsy to a certain extent. I was one of those kids that was scared of the ball and hated dodgeball and things like that. And so to be now being 48 and kind of coming up with this strength within me has been very rewarding, and I like to go, I'm 49, I'm being reminded, oh golly, okay.
So okay, we all forget once in a while.
So it means a lot to me to find this strength within me and kind of to be this new person as I get older and have an empty nest now that our daughter has gone away. She's 22 and just graduated from college, so that was kind of my driving force to start seeing, well, what can I do? What kind of endurance, efforts can I try to pursue?
Yeah, that's really beautiful. It's amazing. You're finding inspiration and living your lives in such a full way. It's a huge inspiration to me. I know it's a huge inspiration to so many other people. When it comes down to it, you're getting people out in the outdoors, making meaningful changes in their life, and that goes such a long way. So
that's
you guys
awesome.
are amazing.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah, I love hearing that we can inspire others.
Yeah. Vito Labella on Facebook says, "Hell yes, kick as some," but I think he means kick some ass. So you got a lot of admirers out there. We'll go to another question. Pretty simple one, but what's been the most fascinating animal or critter you've seen on your travel so far from the Mexican border up to Flagstaff?
I can definitely say that the Sonoran desert tortoise was the most fascinating creature that I've seen on the trail ever. Really, I've seen a lot of black bear in my times of hiking and trail running, but this was just such an amazing, gentle, beautiful spirit in this tortoise. I felt very honored to be able to be in its presence and to see it. I initially had walked right by it because it was so camouflaged into the trail, and Ross said, "Did you see this guy?" And so I said no and stepped back, and there it was, and I really had a nice connection, just really getting down on its level and being able to really see what seemed like probably a pretty ancient creature.
Yeah.
Its shell was all dusty and scratched up and just had so much character.
Yeah.
And it turns out that Kathy's a tortoise whisperer, which we didn't know because he had, pulled back and
He
hidden
had.
in his shell, and she came over and just talked quietly to him in her special animal voice, and he slowly poked his head out and looked up
he
at
looked
her.
right at me.
Oh man, that's incredible.
It was very emotional.
Yeah.
Very heartwarming.
That's a beautiful connection.
Yeah.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
That's what makes doing what you're doing incredible. You just never know when those moments are going to happen.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
you don't.
Yeah.
And that's what we're all about. We're not super fast. We do good. We're stubborn and we move and we cover ground that not everybody can do. But we're not super fast. But what we're after are those experiences. I mean, that's part of the whole idea of doing a yo-yo, is to experience the trail in as complete a way as possible. So not just northbounding and then think, I wonder what the trail's like southbounding. We want to do it all in one big serving and get to experience the trail in every aspect. So
Yeah,
hopefully that'll involve seeing another Sonoran desert tortoise and
Yeah.
all the other things. We saw a vinegaroon, which was pretty interesting.
I've never even heard that before.
It's a type of, it's called a whip scorpion, but it doesn't have a stinger. But it looks like a scorpion. It has the claws and it has this real long, it looks like a whip hanging off the back of it.
Yeah.
We saw that outside Patagonia, and they'll spray like a vinegar spray at you.
No way.
They're very
Interesting.
very black, a dark, shiny black, and it was probably about that big.
Yeah. Oh wow.
It was good size.
Yeah.
That was in Patagonia.
Yeah, well, you're in good spot. I saw javelina just about a half mile from here the other day. So you're in javelina country and black bear country. So hopefully you'll see some more beautiful animals in the next
Yeah.
couple days of your
Yeah.
trip and beyond. That's a good transition, Roz. Can you just kind of tell people who aren't familiar, give a bit of background to the timeline, how long it takes, how long you planned on it taking, and how long it is taking, and some of the difficulties you've encountered thus far during your journey.
Okay. Let's see. Well, so historically, the AZT, the first fastest known time, or the first time record set on it, was by Lee Branfers, and that was 35 days and some hours. Let's see, and then I think I may be missing a few, but I think the next record, or the next like solid jump after that, was 28 days by Worldwide. And then I know Crudmeister holds the current record of 21 days in pure thru-hiker style, so self-supported, feet on the ground, not hitchhiking or accepting rides, and that is just a mind-blowing accomplishment. 21 days thru-hiker style, pure ethic on this trail is just, I really think it's one of the stoutest and most impressive FKTs on any long trail. It's just such a challenging and brutal trail in every way, the logistics, every aspect of it. So for comparison, an attempt was made, a fully supported attempt was just made to break his record, and the runner came in at 25 days with a small crew, I think just his wife, but still, supported and crewed, still came in 4 days over Crudmeister's record, so that's impressive. So when we did it a year and a half ago, Kathy set the inaugural women's FKT of 35 days, matching Lee Branfers' original FKT. So our hope, and we made mistakes, and we had a 0 day in there and some other things going on, some logistical challenges. So we were thinking that if we could move well, that we could double that and do a yo-yo in 70 days. So that was kind of our pie in the sky goal that we felt was realistic and possible, and that was what we put out as our goal. So now we're on day 37.
37.
With 210 miles still to go before we turn around. So 70 days is off the table at this point. We might be able, 80 days, if we put in a really good performance on the return, we might be able to get 80 days. 90 days is looking realistic at this point. We've just had a ton of challenges. I mean, trail conditions, we've only got one ultra distance day in so far. Lots of days in the teens just because of bushwhacking and fighting off gnarly, sharp, grabby bushes. Then rain and mud, I mean, things you wouldn't think for a desert trail. So just trail conditions and other aspects slowing us down. So But again, our goal isn't necessarily to do it as fast as possible, but is to try to do something new. So we're going for the only known time.
Yeah, and you're learning and adapting. Retrospect is always so crystal clear, so you're really adapting as you go along. So following a timeline must be incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Keeping with the low-key theme of this little interview Periscope we're doing, the phone's running out of battery. I'm going to go grab something inside, but we're going to keep rolling. The next question I'm going to throw to Kathy. Just curious about your food and fuel strategy, planning, how it's been. Have there been any low-calorie days? How that all works?
Yeah, there have definitely been some low-calorie days. One quite memorable day when we were heading into our resupply town to pick up our box from the post office. I think Ross and I shared a single packet of instant oatmeal, and we had a little bit of instant mashed potatoes and some soy curls, some seasoned soy curls, and we were able to share those on our last day. And when you're hiking and you're hungry, there isn't really anything else you can think about but food. And when you're going to get your next meal, it's very distracting, and it's very hard to keep moving in such a physically demanding way when you don't have the calories or energy to fuel you. But before we left for our trip, we did acquire all of the food that we were going to have and packaged it up and sent about 18 boxes ahead, and then dropped one off here at your place in Flagstaff so that we could access also. I have some pancreatic issues, so I have to follow a very low fat diet, so most of my food choices have been on the low fat side: dried fruits, dried veggies, the dried potatoes, rice, refried beans for meals, and that kind of thing. And as I go throughout the day and I'm snacking, I have some Honey Stinger products that Ross and I are sponsored by Honey Stinger, so I've been able to use those. The Boggs Trail Butter is a high fat fuel, so I just can take little slurps off of their trail butter packages. And yeah, it takes a lot of planning to get your food all organized, and we thought we'd done a good job of it, but when you run out and you're sharing a package of instant oatmeal, you realize maybe you didn't do such a great job. So that is a big part of it for sure, is getting the
It's been fun learning of your fueling and food strategy. It's expanding my narrow scope as an ultra runner to learn more about caloric intake and the role of fats in endurance activities like you're doing. It's been fascinating.
Yeah.
Nick Irvine asks, what do you anticipate will be the hardest push on your southerly route? You still have some more northerly, probably 5 days or so before you start your southerly journey. What do you think will be toughest out there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, right now we're basically heading into the crux, to take a term from climbing. This is the big moment where we've got, the canyon aside, the ground from here to Utah is pretty cruisy. We should be able to get ultra distance days every day and really cover some ground. And this is really the point where we can make ground against winter, basically, where the whole challenge of this, normally in the fall, people southbound. So people start at the Utah border where it's cooler, and they head south kind of following fall. And we had to do the opposite in order to get to the northern end first. So we started in really hot temperatures down south, and we've just been trying to get north before winter hits and kicks us in the butt. So really this right here, even though it's some of the easier ground, is going to be the hardest push, because we're trying to touch Utah and get back to Flagstaff before winter hits hard and immobilizes us. Yeah. We're kind of riding the ragged edge of disaster, because we've got to carry a lot of food and we've got to carry a lot of water, because the water sources and resupply points on the trail are limited. So you end up with a heavy pack, even if you're an ultralight backpacker. Even with a 10 or 12 pound base weight, it's still 30 or 40 pounds of food and water. So we don't have a lot of extra layers to deal with too much cold.
Yeah.
I think go ahead.
Probably about the 120-mile-ish stretch from Pine down to the Roosevelt Lake Marina is going to be our hardest stretch, both in terms of our supplies, and it's just a slower moving section because that's where the terrain is very rugged and overgrown, and it's just such a long stretch between resupplies. I feel like that's going to be the hardest push, is right in there. We're going to have some nice terrain between here and getting back to Pine, and Pine's just a sweet little community where we can get geared up again, but then we'll have a good push, both mentally and physically. But we'll be feeling good as we're heading further south and getting closer to our ultimate goal.
Yeah. So many challenges out there, and I find it interesting that you didn't mention the fact that you have about 18,000 feet of climbing in the Grand Canyon over the next 10 days as well. Pretty awesome. And you're right on that tail end of the season too, where the water sources are they can't be relied on, which you're going to be carrying a lot of extra water. And you may get somewhere and realize you probably didn't have to carry that gallon of water for the past 5 miles and 5,000 feet of climbing. So extra challenging for sure.
Yeah, and we definitely do. We have to make that call and play it safe and carry extra water because of Kathy's pancreatic issues. She's really sensitive to dehydration. Yeah. So, like I myself, I can push it. I can go 6 or 8 hours without water if I have to. Like I know how to, I know what pace I can move and how I can push myself under those circumstances, but she can't risk that. So, yeah, we'll be carrying extra water.
Yeah, lots of challenges out there. Keeping with the theme, Mo the cat has jumped the fence. I'm going to go get Mo. I'm going to throw this question back to either of you guys. You can share it. Just talk about your gear, shoes, shelter. Do you use poles or not? How you cope with the various temperatures at night with these huge fluctuations. Sometimes you get in 60s during the day, and it might even drop into below freezing at night. So talk about your gear a little bit, and I'll be back.
All right.
One of the things that we have found with gear, and especially night hiking, is that I can be down to this single smart wool sweater, and even a skirt or just single leggings to hike in, and then having access to different layers that you can put on your head and around your face that you can access. We both carry a front pack, and so I have gloves with the chemical hand warmers, and a buff and a wool scarf to put around my face, and the hood on my sweater, and I can remove those and add them, put them on as needed as we're traveling. You get to a climb and start hiking uphill, and suddenly you're very hot. Well, I can take off my hats and not have to worry about stopping and taking off my pack and putting on or taking off the layer. So I think we have both found, we call them our cold bundles, and we keep them right up front. 2 hats, a scarf, and everything just right up front that I can put on as needed and remove as needed very easily. We both have a down puffy jacket and down puffy pants as our main gear for warmth, and we have a waterproof cape made by 6 Moon Designs that can also keep out wind. Even if it's not raining, you can easily just pull that off your pack and deploy it or put it on over your pack and just be warm just with the cape too. So.
Yeah, and it should shed snow well also, so that's our our insulating layers are separate from our weatherproofing layer, and that way we can put that on when we need. As far as sleeping bag, we're sharing a single Feathered Friends 20-degree bag. That's an upgrade. When we did this before, we used a 40-degree bag, so that is a heavier sleeping bag, and one of the ways that we prepared for the colder weather. And then we have a 6 Moons design, just a net tent, so basically to keep bugs out, which plenty of nights we've just pitched that, and then we also have a tarp, a rainproof tarp that goes over the top of that. And the tarp, so in really cold weather and snow, we can rig the tarp all the way down to the ground so that it'll be kind of windproof, and obviously we can use our capes inside the tent for windproofing as well on a really cold night.
Yeah.
For shoes, we're both brand ambassadors for ultra running, and we've been wearing the Lone Peaks, their trail shoe. I've been wearing the 2.5s, and Ross was wearing the 2.0s, and Ultra sent us new shoes here, and so I'm starting out with the new Neo Shell, their waterproof, heavier duty fabric. So these will be fun to try and to have for the colder temperatures as we head north and possibly hit snow and rain and mud and all of those.
Seems like a great time to pick those up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
Well, again, it's really interesting, expanding my scope of my vision of taking care of yourself out there. It's so challenging. You have these extremes of weather, and you're finding that balance between staying lightweight and efficient, but also finding a certain amount of warmth and comfort out there. It's a risk versus reward ratio that I'm sure you're always battling with, and maybe even second guessing yourself in the extreme conditions.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like the chemical hand warmers I mentioned, those are Ross doesn't carry those, but it's something for me that I love. Even like sometime around 3 or 4 in the afternoon as we've gotten north, I'll pull those out, slip them in my gloves, and they last for 10, 12 hours. They'll last all through the night, and it just gives me, just a sense of comfort and warmth. You know, the physical warmth, but also just, here's something cozy that I can hold and have a heat source constantly.
Those hand warmers in particular have been lifesavers for me a couple times up on the mountain ski mountaineering. But just to go back to that mental aspect, a great example that I can relate to is during Western States this past year. I changed my socks twice, not because I needed to, but my feet were wet the entire race. And when you put on a warm, dry pair of wool socks, it was the mental boost I felt I needed in the moment to keep working and challenging myself out there. So it's obviously a huge physical and grueling thing you're doing, but the mental game is a whole nother topic I'm sure we could talk for hours about.
It is, there is so much that goes into it mentally, and those little moments of comfort, like I was saying, around 3 or 4 I'll pull out my hand warmers, but I also like to pull on like my wool, smart merino wool tights or leggings, and it's just enough that you feel like, okay, now I'm transitioned into the evening hours. Mentally I'm preparing for going into the night, and for it getting dark I'll pull my headlamp out and get it up front in my front pack and everything that I know I'll need at night. And both physically and mentally it helps prepare me to go into those hours, because we'll go till 12 midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, and so that's just like a whole other shift, and transitioning into it properly helps.
Those are some really great points that I think a lot of people can learn a lot from. That's
really I mean, what it comes down to for me is the idea that the mind moves the body. The mind is the general governor, or it's like the computer in your car or whatever, and the body won't function without it. So I carry some items, Kathy carries some things which probably are disposable and or could be left behind that we could do without, but they have an impact on a mental level that gives us a boost, which that translates into being able to move our bodies further and better. And so the direct correlation to the weight carried may not seem obvious, but it pays off in the long run.
Yeah, those are really great points. Julie Blanda via Facebook asked, you got a fan, I'm following their journey as well. Do they go on their own at all on the trail? Meaning, do they take some time just for themselves and meet up later in the day?
No, we don't, but we'll hike for hours and hours and miles without saying anything to each other. So maybe that's the space we need.
Right.
But we're quite compatible out there, and that would be the way that we would give each other space, I would say. It's just quietness. But no, we don't really separate it. We're doing this as a team, and we like to be together out there.
Yeah, we're a unit, so like we have shared gear, so we kind of need to be near each other. We make decisions together as to how far we're going to go, or when and where we're going to try to take our next break.
Ross carries the GPS in there. There's some areas where there's a little bit of route finding. It's actually very well marked and very well mapped, but there are sometimes, and we'd rather be together at those intersections.
Plus we're all about those incidental experiences, like the tortoise. So that's something where if we'd been hiking separate at that moment, Kathy had already walked past it, and she wouldn't have got to have what's been her favorite experience of the entire trail so far. So we definitely have space. I mean, I was thinking about that the other day when we we were cruising along, and I realized we hadn't said anything to each other for hours. And it's really wonderful in a lot of ways, where we're together, and yet we're each, in our own heads, having our own experience of the trip and the trail.
Yeah, I
Miles apart.
call that comfortable silence. I do most of my training alone, but there's a few people in my life I can share a lot of miles with, and there's not a whole lot of talking out there, and it almost makes it a more meaningful shared experience at times.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm going to move on to kind of a quicker Q&A session. Short answers, pretty easy questions, just to allow people to get to know you a little bit better, or maybe trade off back and forth. So, Kathy, you kind of hinted on this earlier, but what's the least number of calories you've had in a 24-hour period or a day on the hike so far?
I would think that day where we shared an oatmeal packet and a little fruit snack packet from Costco was probably maybe 400 calories, I'm guessing. Not many.
Yeah.
I don't think it was even that.
Yeah, sounds like a little less. Can't even imagine. Roz, what's the furthest you traveled in one day thus far in your 37 days in your trip?
Thus far, 29. It was almost 30. We could round up to 30 if we want to be generous, but it was 29.76, I think.
Okay.
29 3/4.
And Kathy, what's the least miles you've traveled in a day, and why?
Our first day, we only made it 8 miles, and we had actually been hiking in like crazy extreme heat for a couple of hours, and just were so hot, and we were immediately right at elevation, like 8,000 feet is where the trail starts. And we got to the first water source, which is called Bathtub Springs, and that's where we decided to call it for the day. After the heat came in, a crazy thunder and lightning and rain and hailstorm, and that was just kind of about it for us for the first day. So 8 miles.
All right. I didn't know this until I met Christina, my incredible rock and partner in life. But she's hiked both the PCT and the AT, and she had a trail name. Hers was Pollywog. Tadpole. Sorry, Christina. No, I'm just kidding. Tadpole. Curious if you guys have adopted trail names, or are you sticking with the ultra pedestrian tagline on that?
No, I don't have a distinct trail name. Everyone calls me Ross, and that's great.
Yeah.
That sticks pretty well for sure.
Kathy has, she doesn't have a trail name. I call her Obal, which stands for One Badass Lady, so OBAL. But she hasn't really adopted that. She's, on a funny note, she's tried a few times to kind of come up with trail names.
Nothing sticks.
Nothing sticks, and for some reason they all end up sounding like stripper names.
Yeah, I had thought of like Desert Rose. That kind of has a stripper name
Sandy
vibe.
Sable.
Sandy Sable.
They all sound like people working in disreputable clubs on the outskirts of town. So.
Yeah. Well, I think the ultra pedestrian tagline it goes a long way.
Yeah, that's
a really
what
cool
we
thing.
use.
Without food and water, how much would you estimate your packs weigh?
I think my base weight is right about 12, which is generally considered the cutoff for ultralight backpacking. If you don't include camera equipment, because I'm carrying a GoPro and a cell phone and a pretty heavy battery pack, so I think I'm right about 12 without that stuff. With that stuff, I'm about 15.
Yep.
And mine is quite a bit lighter than Ross's, so I don't really even know what to guess. What do you?
I think yours is in the 8 to 10 pound range, maybe 10.
Yeah, and there have been stretches where we've really added quite a bit of weight in carrying water because of the distances between water sources.
Yeah.
So that's really food and water are the heavy items that we're carrying.
Yep. Looks like we have a couple questions on Periscope. Penny, what's the first one?
What packs are you using?
I'm using a Washington, or no, I'm sorry.
WAA. What an Adventure.
What an Adventure Ultra Bag that has a front pack that can be removed and 2 side pouches, so I can access quite a bit right up front without removing my pack.
I like those.
Yeah,
real convenient.
I'm
Not to
loving
take
it.
your pack off,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're out and you're fully packed.
Yeah.
And I'm using a Six Moons Designs pack. I can't remember the name of the model. It's a 60-liter pack. I went with a large pack because of knowing we'd have to carry a lot of water and a lot of food. And then I have a aftermarket Raidlight brand front pack that I've added onto it. So I love to have a kit up front. I love to have a bunch of calories and camera, phone, and a hat and some arm sleeves, like everything that I can access right here without having to take my pack off. So I'm a big fan of front packs.
Yeah. Roz, do your dreads and your beard have a Twitter handle?
That's awesome.
They don't, but I suppose they should. That's a good idea. They'll have to.
It would be incredible.
Yeah.
Somebody
They
needs to get
should.
on that.
Then they
Rob's
could.
beard does, doesn't
Right.
it?
It does, and the funny part about it is I don't own that handle, and I don't know who does, which just adds to the
Oh, that's great.
yeah.
They
it's
could
a
get
lot of
into a
fun.
Twitter war.
Totally.
Ross's
Tim
locks
Olson's
and-
hair, Rob Krar's beard, Roz's dreads.
That's
That'd be
great.
pretty awesome. I'm curious. So when I'm in my darkest moments in my 100-mile races, especially, there's an image I have in my head that gives me comfort, however fleeting it may be. But and I know I'm going to turn into even further the crazy cat guy. But I picture one of our cats, maybe both of them, laying in front of the fire in the winter, just in their fairy tale land, and it gives me that little bit of comfort. Do you have an image, or do you have a thought that you go to when you're really struggling out there?
Yeah, I probably go to a similar place that you do as far as referring back, thinking about your cats. I think of my home. I often think of cooking comfort food, and being at home by a cozy fire with my cats, and just home and my home life. And it's not necessarily that that's where I want to be at that moment, but it provides the comfort and the heartwarming that I need. I do go to a dark place almost every night out there, really. I mean, I come to tears a lot, and sometimes they aren't, tears of frustration or sadness or boy, this is hard. Sometimes I'm just overwrought with emotions and chills and just really moving moments out there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely very often will go to a place where tears are streaming down my cheeks. I'm an emotional person, so that happens with me. I don't know that Ross has ever come to tears on the trail, but
One of my main mental tools, especially for through hiking and adventures with Kathy, compared to like an adventure run or an ultra marathon where I'm solo, is to basically put it in terms of eternity. Like if everything's kind of horrible, if we're out of water and really low or out of food, and it's a crazy grinding climb and it's bitter cold or blazing hot or whatever, I think about two different aspects. I think about where I would rather be, and I can never come up with any place, because that's what I love doing.
and that's what he'll ask me. Well, where would you rather be?
Yeah, and that doesn't always go over very well, but it is what I ask. And then the other thing I
Totally
consider...
put myself in that situation with Christina, and I should not have asked that.
Right, yeah, no. And then the other thing I think about in that same level is like, okay, well, what if this was forever? What if this was eternity? What if it was either, I guess I normally think of it in terms of hell, like a negative, like if this was hell, if this was, what I was destined to do for the rest of eternity, then that's really not that bad. Moving with a pack through a beautiful landscape, if that was my personal Groundhog Day that I was going to be doing forever and ever and ever, that when I think of it in those terms, it just lightens it. It's just like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
I can do that. I can just take a step, and whether it's running or hiking, that's basically how I think of it, in terms of almost like a Zen perspective of all I'm really trying to do is take a perfect step, and then repeat that an infinite number of times. And that's mentally
that does
that gets
help
me
for
through.
sure. Just getting right back to the basics and just calming myself down and saying all that I have to do right now is take one more step and then one more step, and just focus on the trail. And I'll simply block out everything else in my periphery and just try to meditate on the trail itself and just really look at the trail.
Yeah.
And then before I know it, I've come out of whatever funk I was in.
Yeah. That's beautiful and fascinating. Thanks for sharing. It's always really interesting to learn what goes on in our minds. They're such powerful creatures in themselves. And
They are.
it's really neat. Let's go to one more Periscope question.
Any unexpectedly crucial gear needed so far?
Maybe that gear that you forgot. Is that how
Yeah.
you take that question?
Yeah, that's what it sounds to me like is what we got out on the trail without and needed. Crucial gear. No, I mean it's that's a great question actually because it's the list of gear that's absolutely crucial is extremely small. I mean, I did a traverse of Washington State last year without a tent or a sleeping bag. And most people would consider those absolutely crucial pieces of gear. No, we did a good job. There were one or two little things where we got out and like, oh, I wish I had that, or oh, I could have brought that. But most of those items aren't things that you actually need. And to me, that's a huge skill set involved in any sort of endurance activity, through hiking, ultra running, adventure running, all of that. It's developing the skill of doing without. So I always take a bunch of duct tape. I'll usually wrap about 6 feet of duct tape around each of my trekking poles, and I can make or repair almost anything out of that. A couple really basic things like bandanas that are super versatile that can be made into 100 different items. But no, we didn't. I can't think of anything that was crucial that we left without.
No.
And there's something so satisfying about being self-sufficient and problem solving out there. You almost can't describe that kind of satisfaction.
Right. Yeah. No. It's really not an adventure until something goes wrong.
Yeah.
They say no plan survives initial contact with the enemy, or no plan survives implementation, and that's true. I mean, it really isn't an adventure until something has gone to crap and you have to figure out how to work around it or fix it or replace it.
Yeah.
I love that. I really enjoy that aspect of it.
Yep. Well, Ras and Kathy, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you,
Yeah.
everybody, for joining us on Periscope. I don't think this is going to be a career move for me, but I've had a lot of fun nonetheless. Hopefully we'll catch Ras and Kathy for another chat on their way south in hopefully 10, 12 days, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Ras and Kathy have great relationships with Ultra, Trail Butter, Honey Stinger, Seven Hills Running out of Seattle. And if people want to join you, follow you, support you, where can they find you? Blogs, social media?
Yeah, our blog is at ultrapedestrian.com. We're not updating it from the trail, but if you go there, it has the most recent post has the links to our personal Facebook pages and our Instagram and our Twitter, as well as a link to our spot transponder so that you can actually see where we are via satellite on the trail. And we're posting frequent updates as often as we can to our YouTube channel at Ultra Pedestrian and our personal Facebook pages.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Best wishes, swift travel, safe travels, and we'll catch up to you on the other side. Thanks so much, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks so
you.
much, Rob. Thanks for
Rob.
all your
Thanks, Penny.
help in hospitality, and from you and Christina. We really appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah, we feel incredibly fortunate just to play that tiny little role in your travel. It's incredibly inspiring.
It's huge.
Christina and I.
So nice to be able to come here and sleep in a warm bed and
Yeah,
shower up and do our laundry.
Even though half of Ross's bed was probably falling off, it was a very small bed, and Ross is a very tall man, but we're so happy to have you. Thanks, everybody. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
next time.
Great. Thanks. As an honor being the guests on the inaugural episode of the Rob Krar Show.
Yeah.
Backyard show.
Something like that. Might have to come up with a better name. Yeah. Cool.